I'm so glad you're here listening to the Sustain Your Passion podcast. I'm Genesis, your host and business development expert. If you're ready to make a bigger impact and income while helping others, then you're in the right place. Thanks for joining me, and I can't wait to help you sustain your passion. Hi everyone, so today I'm going to answer 11 questions that I heard from my community about starting your own podcast. So I am at episode 21, so I'm still pretty new, but I've made it through 21 episodes. This is episode 21, which feels like a big win. And I want to make a quick comment that I still feel like an imposter answering these questions, even though people want to know my thoughts on these questions. They came to me with these questions, and I can answer all of them. I do have experience. I've been at this for over 4 months now, and I still feel some imposter syndrome around, well, there's other people more qualified to answer this, right? There's people that have thousands of episodes and hundreds of hours, right? So what am I doing answering these questions? And this is really similar to what I help a lot of my clients with, because they feel like imposters that, who are they to be new coaches when there's coaches out there that are better than them or more experienced or have more certifications or whatnot. And they feel like an imposter too. So I just want to say that I feel that feeling right now. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at that fear in the face and saying, hey, I don't have to decide if people want to listen to my opinions on how to start a podcast versus someone else's. It's not up to me who they want to learn from, but it is something that I can contribute to. I don't have to be the perfect end-all be-all authority on how to start a podcast. In fact, I'm not, and I know that. And I don't think that my listeners think that either. But if I get caught up in the ego of, oh my gosh, I have to be perfect at this, I need to be everything this person needs, then I'm going to stress myself out and not ever get started and not share what I do know, which is, from my perspective, how to start a podcast. And I can be one voice that contributes to their learning. I don't have to be the perfect, knower of all things to be able to contribute to someone being just a little bit closer to starting their own podcast to help more people too. Because that's ultimately my goal as a business coach. Is I can't help everyone with every type of coaching, but I can help coaches get their offers out there so that they can be helping more people with all of the amazing skills that they have. So in terms of why I am overcoming my imposter syndrome today, to say, hey, I have some lessons, and heck, in 6 months, I might answer some of these questions differently. But given my experience of running a podcast for 4 months, having 20 episodes, and recording the 21st today, here's what I think. So if you're interested, stick around. I'm going to answer 11 questions that I heard from my community of new coaches and consultants about how to start a podcast. So the first question I got was, why did I decide to start a podcast in the first place? So I had been running my coaching business for like 4.5 years, almost 5, and I started a podcast. Why did it take me that long? Well, I had actually tried to start my podcast like 2 or 3 different times before. When I first dreamed of starting a coaching business, I always pictured myself as someone who would have a podcast one day. I just didn't get started on it for a long time. I didn't know what I would say or what I would talk about, and that's some of the stuff I'll answer today, is like how to come up with topics and how to actually do the technical side of it. But for me, I finally started because I realized I had so much information in my head and I have so many lessons learned that I wanted to go deeper on that an Instagram post or a Facebook post or even a TikTok video couldn't really do. And I don't really like going live on Facebook or Instagram. I find it really restrictive because it's like, it feels like you should have been there live, but then you're watching the replay. And so it's like you're missing out on something. Like personally, I almost never, like very, very rarely watch live videos on Instagram or Facebook myself, but I do listen to a good podcast here and there. And I love audiobooks. And when I'm trying to learn something new, I'm going to play every single podcast that creator has on the topic because I want to learn as much as I can. So I leaned into the way that I like to learn, and I like to share information, which is by talking out Q&As and answering questions and sharing my stories and my lessons learned. And podcasting is a really great way to do that without feeling like I'm stifled into these other formats that require people to like join me at the right time or whatever. I also feel really comfortable to some days just not even record myself like video wise. I often will though, so that I have video content for TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. But if I just want to get a story out or I just want to share something, I can just turn on my mic. I don't have to worry about getting like dressed or ready and can just record. So I really enjoy podcasting for all those reasons, but also it helps me get my knowledge to people on their timeline. So, whether you're watching your kids play outside right now, you're doing the dishes, or you're doing your skincare routine, you could be learning about how to start your own podcast through this podcast, right? Like you don't have to be actively watching something, you can just be listening to it, or maybe you're driving to work or whatever. So I find it just really accessible for my community, as well as it's a way that I really like sharing information. So that is question 1, why I started a podcast. And then question 2 was, how did I pick my podcast name? So my very first career coaching program was called Sustain Your Passion because I wanted to help people that were very selfless in the name of service, and they were so passionate about helping others, but they were neglecting themselves and were on the path to burnout. To me, that meant that they needed to learn how to sustain their passion for helping others by achieving a better work-life balance, and sometimes that meant changing their work in general, like either what their job was, what their career path was, or completely leaving their industry, starting their own business, whatever the change had to be. They needed some kind of radical career change, and they wanted to be able to sustain their passion for their work, for their life, for their home, for their family, but they needed to make some changes to make that possible. So that was my first program. And as I started offering other courses and guides and like passive courses and different coaching programs over the years and masterminds, I realized like Sustain Your Passion is actually the overarching why I do what I do, because I was that person that needed that career coaching program. I was able to help all my clients so well because I had been through their exact struggles of figuring out, how do I sustain my passion while helping others? Because I kind of only knew this binary of give, serve, neglect yourself, or you're selfish and you're not giving enough, and there just this really negative side of like setting boundaries and whatnot, when really there had to be a happy medium. There had to be a way for me to do both so that I could sustain my passion for helping others and my life. So once I realized that, though, I started seeing it more as my business's brand overarchingly, and then all of my offers aligned within that brand. So it was a really easy decision for me to make to name this podcast Sustain Your Passion, because in 2023, January of 2023, I shifted from a sole proprietor to an S Corp. And so that became the name of my business. Whereas it used to be Genesis Rose Long Coaching, I shifted it to Sustain Your Passion LLC and wanted to make that in alignment with my podcast, because ultimately that's my why. Like, it's my personal why. It's also how I help my clients and why I do what I do and how I do it. So it just aligned really well for me that, like, if I could help anyone learn one lesson, it would be how to sustain their passion. Okay, so question number 3, what type of program would you recommend for starting a podcast? So I read this as like program being like software. But I also, as I'm reading it now, like maybe that's like a lesson, like maybe they want like a course or program kind of thing to learn how to start a podcast. So I'm going to answer the latter because I have another question about software later. Okay, so what type of program would you recommend for starting a podcast? I actually hired a podcast, what did she call herself? A podcast launch coach or something like that. I don't think she does it anymore, but there are people that offer podcast launch services where they'll help you design the image for your podcast and like get you set up on a platform and then make it where that platform pushes your content out to all the different podcast playing platforms like iTunes and Spotify and whatever other ones that I'm forgetting the name of. So I worked with somebody one-on-one for that kind of support. She had a program that I think was like 6 weeks. She ended up letting me do it at my pace, which I had a medical issue come up like 2 months into working with her. And that was really great that I was able to have that pause and then pick up that work later because I, had surgery and stuff. So, but she was really helpful in making sure that I knew what I could still ask her for help with, and then making sure that stuff was done so that I didn't have to do like all of the itsy bitsy technical pieces and I could focus on the creative side of things, which was really helpful. So I don't have a specific program that I would refer you to just because the one that I did isn't available anymore. But if you were looking for support with launching your podcast, just search that in Instagram or on Facebook or Google, and you will find someone for sure. There's lots of people that do that type of support. Okay, number 4, can you monetize a podcast? Heck yeah. And then follow up, how would you go about doing that? Okay, so a couple of ways you could monetize a podcast. So there's basically 2 frameworks for how you get paid as an online creator. So this is creating content, right? This podcast right now that you're listening to is content. Now, or media is what it used to be called, but like more so these days, people call it content and like content creators and things like that. So there's 2 ways that I, for example, could get paid by you listening to this podcast. The first would be I could get paid by you. So I could sell you my programs and my offers and my courses and things like that. The second is that you could pay other companies and then those companies pay me a commission. So that's like affiliate marketing. Now, if you listen to some podcasts, they have sponsors where basically it's the latter model where a company pays the podcaster for either a certain amount of like commercials within their podcast, where they'll like stop halfway and be like, this podcast is brought to you by blah, 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 and explain whatever the service is and advertise that service to you in hopes that you go and purchase it. And they usually give you a discount code so that they can have a referral point that like, okay, this person is buying because of this podcaster. And then that podcaster would get a referral credit for whatever you want and purchase from that other company. So that's how like affiliate marketing or network marketing or like sponsors of podcasts would work, which could help monetize your podcast. There's those 2 ways, and then how you actually create those ways and like build it up also has some various ways of doing it. So in the first option where like, for example, I talk to you about my programs and services, there's 2 ways that I could do that. I could be really direct where I could just stop halfway through and be like, hey, if you're trying to grow your coaching business, you should join Passionate Paychecks, and tell you a little bit about it. And just directly use the fact that you're here listening to this podcast as a way to tell you about my paid for offers. The other way is to use this podcast as a nurture step in my marketing and sales funnel. So for me, I personally don't want to be selling to every person under the sun. I have very specific criteria for who I work with. I have to truly believe in what you do and how you do it. And so I have a pretty long marketing and sales funnel. So for me, podcasting is less about getting you to buy something today and more about helping you get to know me and learn what I know so that should you become interested in joining one of my programs down the road, you aren't surprised by my approach. I would hate if somebody came into one of my coaching programs or courses and was like shocked that I cuss. Like that would annoy the shit out of me because I need to know that you're getting exposed to the real me all the time so that by the time you're actually in one of my paid offers, you know and like me and I don't have to feel like, concerned about being myself. So to me, this is just a way for us to get to know each other and a great way for me to keep sharing my lessons learned and connecting with my community. So I do less direct selling. It's like every couple podcasts I remember to talk about it and feel good about it. So then I share about my offers. Okay, so that would be if it's monetizing the podcast through my own business, right? And then there's monetizing the podcast through like affiliates, like I talked about that second option. So, how I would go about doing that is a couple of ways. There are new sites that are all about helping you get brand deals and get sponsors for your podcast. So, you could sign up for one of those platforms, and then basically it's like a job board for companies that are looking for people with certain criteria in their audiences to advertise their products. And so with that, it would be like a very specific partnership or contract that you would have with that person. But there's the platform, right? Like the website that would connect you to that person. Another way is that you could directly reach out to brands yourself that you think would be interested in advertising what they do or what they sell on your podcast and try and build a relationship and get a contract with them. And then similarly, it's going to be affiliate and like referral income. So like if you sell $1,000 program to somebody, maybe you get, I don't know, 10-20% of that sale. And then I would say another way is more of a passive affiliate route. So for example, I am a huge fan of Flowdesk, which is an email automating software that is super pretty, really light touch, so good for the beginner online creator and online coach, because you should have an email platform, you should have email sequences, you should be giving out freebies to build your email list, and Flowdesk makes all of that super easy. Now, I am an affiliate for it without getting like approved. I'm pretty sure anybody that has an account is an affiliate, and like they just bake that into part of your account. So I could go grab that link and share it at the end of like my show notes or in emails or whatever. And passively, I would be able to make, I think it's like $19 per sign up or something like that. And then you get 50% off. And so I'm not actually having to like sign a new contract with them, negotiate that, you know, it'd be worth it to them to advertise on my podcast. I can just go start that and then talk about Flowdesk and recommend you sign up with my link so you save 50% and then get my $19 credit. So it's going to be a lot smaller of a return, but it is a return and it's super passive. That's also how like Amazon affiliates works and most network marketing in general. It's the same method of like you just sign up for to sell certain products or to sell for certain companies that already have it built out for you. And then your job is just to talk about those products wherever people listen to you in hopes that they go and purchase under your referral link or your affiliate code. Like I've had clients that like, even though in our workbooks, I show you like, this is the mic I use or the like Flowdesk, for example, like people will go and sign up for it without my link. And it's just like, oops, missed opportunity. I guess you didn't see that like I had an affiliate link for you that you could have saved money and I could have gotten a kickback, but like I'm still talking about it. So that does require a lot of reminders and being like, use code, I don't know, Genesis 10 or whatever. So you save, 10% off of that purchase. So those are a couple of ways you can monetize a podcast and how you would go about doing each of those different options. Okay, episode. Okay, question number 6. What mic do you use to record your podcast? So I use the Yeti Blue mic, I think is what they call it. But if you go to Amazon and search like Yeti mic, you'll see one that looks just like a big, huge microphone. I don't know. It's very large. It's got like 2 dials on the back and another one on the front. Mine is pink. That is my favorite color. Pink everything makes me happy. So that's what I use. Honestly, I did not do much searching. There could be just as good of mics around for cheaper. I don't know. Back when I first bought my mic years ago, I went with this one because it's what people were talking about in the program I was in at the time. So it works. I hear all the time from people that it has really good sound quality. I personally like the sound quality on it. It does a good job at like blocking out background noises, which is really helpful. And yeah, I don't really know what all to look for in a good mic, but I do know that this one makes me feel really cool and looks good. And wasn't super expensive. And you can buy it on Amazon and get it shipped to your house in a couple days, which is pretty neat. Okay, question 7. What software do you use to record? So the podcast episodes I record on my own get recorded directly into the software that I edit my podcasts in, which is called CapCut. So CapCut. It's a free platform. You can download it. It works on Mac and PC and on your phone. I got it because TikTok has templates that you can open and like really quickly create TikToks from these templates in CapCut if you have it. And it's just really simple and easy to use and free. So I started using CapCut to make TikToks, and then I decided to start my podcast and realized it doesn't have like a time limit. So I can edit, an hour-long podcast in it and it will work for me. But so when it's just me recording, like this episode, I would just open CapCut, start a new project, drop in the intro sound of my podcast that I already have saved on my computer, and then hit record and start talking, and it's going to record it. And then if I have a guest, I just use Zoom. So there's a setting in Zoom that you can choose that records each person individually, so that if there's crosstalk, sometimes when you're in the meeting, like if you and the guest are talking at the same time, Zoom doesn't recognize either of you as talking. It just kind of cancels out and you can't really hear each other. But if you have that setting turned on to record your soundtracks separately, then when you load it into something like CapCut to edit it, you can see both of the soundtracks of both of your voices, but then also they both play at the same time. So you don't end up not being able to hear anything. It's still kind of confusing because it's like two people talking at the same time, but you can make more sense out of who's saying what. So that's a little tip for if you're editing, or if you're recording rather, in software in Zoom. So then to actually edit it though, I still would load that Zoom audio soundtrack into CapCut, add my intro, and then, chop off the beginning if I need to, and then add my outro at the end of it as well, and then export it from CapCut as an MP4, which is the audio file type for uploading it to the software that I use. So now I have the next question. How do you upload it and where do you upload it? So how I upload it is that after I've got the file saved out of CapCut, so it's got my intro sound, that little song you hear at the beginning of every episode, the content of the episode, so either me talking directly or me talking with a guest, and then the outro added at the very end. Once I've exported that as an MP4, MP3. I'm probably going to mix that up a few more times, but I mean MP3. The correct answer is that you export your podcast audio as an MP3 file. MP4 is with video, but I'm going to mix that up. So I mean MP3. I upload it into a software, I don't know if it's a software, I guess, a website called LibSyn. So it's Liberated Syndication. So it's LibSyn. And LibSyn is a service that hosts your podcast, but then also pushes your podcast out to all of the different podcast players. So once I have my MP4 file, I go into LibSyn, I open up the website for my podcast, and I go to create a new episode. I drop in the MP4 file, I give it a name, I tell it what number it is, I put in the about description, so what you would see on Spotify and the little teensy tiny writing, what this episode is going to be about. And then I schedule it for when I want it to go live. So I share my podcast every Sunday mornings, and then I can schedule it and save it. So that is what it's like to actually upload it. And then where I upload it is just one time into LibSyn. And then back when I had that podcast launch coach working with me, she made it where every episode that gets published to LibSyn pushes out to all the other platforms, because there's a couple that you have to get approved on. And so she like dealt with that approval process, but now they just automatically show up every week. So I only actually upload it one time to one place, and then LibSyn does whatever magical integration stuff it does to make it appear on like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all of that. Okay, question number 10. How do you come up with so many ideas that you talk about every week for an episode? This was such a good question, because that's definitely something that I was really freaked out about before getting started. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to record, I don't know, like 10 episodes before I can launch it, because I'll need like 10 weeks to come up with more ideas. Whereas really, once I launched it, oh my gosh, like I have probably 40 episode ideas right now that I just keep pushing back because I have something come up in the week that I want to record an episode on, or a person reaches out to me, or I connect with someone that I want to interview or whatever. And then I just keep pushing all of those ideas out further because I keep having more new ideas for the podcast. But that was definitely an imposter syndrome like side effect, I'd say, or like symptom of it, because I thought, gosh, like I'm not going to have enough to say in my podcast as a business development coach. Like I'm going to run out of things to say, and I don't know like how I'll come up with ideas, and I'll surely run out of ideas. So I was pretty nervous about that. But then once I got started, I just told myself, like, let's see how this goes. I can figure it out on the way. I can trust myself to troubleshoot as problems come up, but I'm never going to know what my problems are with it until I try. So I just committed and took the courageous step of, all right, I'm doing it. I'm launching it. And let's see what actual problems I have instead of the ones I'm thinking I'll have. And then, yeah, that actually ended up not being a big problem at all, because this is how I come up with topics. So I have this huge bank of ideas, but mostly I get some random idea every week based on the conversations I'm having with people online. So whether it's on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, or my clients in their client calls, in our group coaching calls, as I'm creating content for Instagram, as I'm writing emails, as people email me back, talking to my friends about my work, like all sorts of things come up, and I just get an idea that's like, oh, I bet I could record a podcast about that. And I just jot it down, add it to the list, and then when it's time for me to record, so I try to record every Monday, and when it's time, I just go and look at the list and wait until I see a topic that I'm actually excited about. And if I don't have one that I'm super excited about on Monday, even though Monday is my recording day, I will just not record on Monday and wait until later in the week when I have something that I am excited to talk about, because I have found over the years, gosh, of creating content, like for my own business, but also all the different orgs and businesses and jobs I've had, that I've created content for like Instagram and Facebook and emails and blogs and everything. Your content will be received better when it is something you're genuinely excited about. So you just sound different and you have more to say, and like that makes sense, right? You're excited about it. You like it. You're interested in the topic. So you're going to be more animated when you talk about it. You're going to have more ideas and more stories to share and more humor in it, which is going to be more entertaining to listen to than if you were just like, I don't want to be here, but I'm doing it because I think I have to. Like, no, don't do that. So come up with a bunch of ideas and then let your energy guide you. That would be my biggest tip, and how I would answer how I come up with so many ideas to come up with an episode for every week. Honestly, if I was trying to actually record all of the ideas I have, I would probably be putting out 2 episodes a week, but I have to pace myself. So, yeah, I have a huge long list of stuff that I just keep pushing off because I get new ideas. And as long as I'm still putting out content on social media and engaging with people on social media, I continue to have ideas of what to share on my podcast. So I no longer am worried about that. Okay, question number 11. This is our last question, y'all. Do you get random inspiration, or do you have a general outline or plan as you go? So this is a great question because it really speaks to like how structured your podcast episode should be or could be, and it totally varies. So this episode is very clear, right? I have specific questions people sent in that I'm answering, so it's got a really clear structure. Other episodes, I just want to like yell about an idea. I'm just like really passionate about it and want to just get it out. And so I stick to no format other than, hey, here's what I want to talk about. I talk about it, and then, hey, here's what I told you. Kind of like a paragraph start and end point that we were taught how to do like back in high school, right? Like your intro statement, your main points, and then your conclusion. And that's just the simple format I tried to remember, but even that, like, I go off the rails all the time and just let my ideas flow and try not to judge them too much before I let them out. And then if I'm feeling a little more nervous about the topic, or like I want to make sure I cover everything, this is specifically most common for me when I have guests. I will use a little template I have in a Google Sheet that says what is the topic, like what's the main overarching topic. That's usually what the episode is going to be titled or something really close to it. What are 3 lessons I want to share about that topic? What's one myth or common block related to that topic that I see people struggle with? And then what's my wrap up or recommendation? So out of everything I just shared, if I had to pull out like, don't forget this is the most important part, what would that be? And then that's how I end the episode. So that question, you know, sometimes it's random inspiration, sometimes it's a general outline, sometimes I plan as I go. And when I'm interviewing people, I will typically ask them like, hey, here are 3 questions I thought I could ask you. What do you think of them? Do you like them? Do you want me to ask something differently? Or is there something you want to make sure that we talk about? And then I'll just let them know that like I want it to be conversational though. And so that means like I will go off script. I will ask them follow-up questions. And if they're not okay with that, they're not a good fit for my podcast. But everybody that I've invited to the podcast and told them like that's my approach has loved it, and we just have a conversation, and yeah, I find it really fun. Okay, so yes, general outline and plan and random inspo, all the above. It just kind of depends. So those were my 11 questions that I heard from my community when I put out that I wanted to do a how to start a podcast episode related to their questions. And I want to say that I'll probably put this out there again. My guess is that as you heard this, you might have thought like, ooh, but what about that? Or what about this follow-up? Or I don't know, can you tell me more about this side of things? Like whatever it is, I want to know. I think it would be really helpful to get to just continue doing Q&As. I find it really fun to answer questions. So find me on social media if you have a question that wasn't answered yet in this episode about how to start a podcast, and maybe I'll do a part 2. But otherwise, that's all I have for you today. I hope this is helpful if you are considering starting your own podcast, to remind you that there's no perfect way to do it. And ultimately, you just got to get started so that you can figure out what you need support in, because there's a lot of moving pieces to it. But there is so much value in having a podcast because it's a great way to build community and connect with the people in your online community, and potentially that will lead to them becoming your client. All right, everybody. See you next time. Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Sustain Your Passion podcast. If this episode helped you gain a bit more clarity, courage, or confidence, please share it with your friends on social media or in a text. It would mean the world to me. Thanks in advance for sharing this episode. I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.